tell me a little bit about what's been the toughest part transitioning post basketball, post sports, and kind of going into media, into activism, into weed advocacy. Tell me a little bit about what's been the hardest part, because we see the great stuff, but I know there's
Right.
so much that goes on.
I wouldn't say, I definitely wouldn't say it's easy, but what I would say is it hasn't been like the horror story you hear about athletes transitioning and doing all that. And I think because I just kind of had a plan, I played 15 years and at about 31, I had 3-year-old twins that I just started in like thinking like, okay, I need to start investing money. Who at this point I've, played, almost 10 years. Who knows how much longer I'm going to be playing. So let's start kind of planning ahead. And I ended up playing, until I was 37.
Mm,
So, and the crazy part about it was I was lucky enough to win a championship that year with the Warriors, but I had just signed a 3-year contract that year. So I actually decided to walk away from basketball at
mm.
that point because I feel like, okay, I got this championship. I've had a fun run, but I'm missing a lot with my kids, with my family that I'll never be able to get back. So, and luckily also at that time, like some of the business stuff that I invested back, at 31, 32 kind of started turning profit. So it's just like it was almost like a perfect storm of, man, I've had a great 15-year run. I'm going to miss this, but I'm ready for what's next. So there was no me hanging on because I feel like sometimes athletes try to hang on to the game too long.
Very much so.
To me, there was no hanging on. I was ready. I made a decision. Never once did I think about going back. Never once did I think about going to the big three. Like I felt like I had a 15-year run. Dope. Now I'm going to give all that energy to being with my kids, coaching my kids, and business. And then the media side came out of nowhere, to be honest with you. I wanted to go full-fledged cannabis. I've been smoking since I was 14. So I kind of wanted to be an advocate for it and kind of a shield for the NBA, so to speak. So that was what I, put my first foot forward. But a friend of mine, she used to tell me, who works in, she's a PR lady, and she's just like, you were always so well spoken in your interviews. You should try, commentating or ESPN or something. I was like, nah, it was just wasn't in the cards. She's like, and she stayed on me for maybe like 4 or 5 months consistently. I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I started doing Fox and ESPN, and I liked it, and I was getting positive feedback, and I'm like, shit. And then they started paying me well too. I'm like, oh yeah, I might have to, plant my feet in this and kind of make a run. So to answer your question, I don't want to make people seem like it's easy because it hasn't been easy, but it hasn't been hard because it's been stuff that, now that I learned it and understand it, it's stuff I love to do. So it's just a lot because I have a heavy schedule, but really just the most important thing for me is just my time management.
I love that, and that's such a good way to keep the fear, because I feel like a lot of people, that fear that you spoke of, it's not a horror story. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it's a
At
grind.
least
It's
it's
just a
it's a
grind.
grind. It's just another grind, as you did
But
in
I think
sports. So
too, as athletes, and not to cut you off, but I think you understand, like when we're so disciplined at our craft, like,
very much.
me and Kobe used to talk about this. Kobe's like, I used to get up, at 6 o'clock and have to hit the fucking trap. Now I get up at 6 o'clock and we're sending emails. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's just like we apply that same discipline we have as an athlete to whatever we feel like, we love in it, and it'll turn out because it's just hard work.
Yeah, and it's kind of bringing your mental from sports into what
Yeah.
you're doing now.
Right.
And I love that. I couldn't agree more. I feel like that was my transition also. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your marijuana activism, between you, Steve Jackson, Al Harrington, J.R. Smith. I really, really love what you guys doing. I'm a personal advocate of it. I have been personally an advocate of it, but also I have a cousin with autism, and through marijuana, we've seen her seizures go down from 10
Wow.
a day to 0.
Love that.
So I really, I watch your podcast with my boyfriend, and we really talk about destigmatizing weed within our community as Black and brown people, but also, in the public eye, in media. So people in sports, in media feel more comfortable
Yeah.
with using it responsibly. So tell me a little bit about that. I know it's true and dear to your heart as it is mine, but
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about how Actually, tell me where you think this stigmatism came from and how we can combat that.
Well, I think, unfortunately, the stigmatism came from just the war on drugs in the early 80s. And we used to call it weed, but now since it's normalized, we call it cannabis. It was always a black and brown drug, and it was a gateway drug that it was going to make you be a crackhead or, whatever stigma they attached to it. That's what they ran with it because it was a stigma that they can easily put on minorities, so to speak. So I just think, understanding our platform as athletes and, how far our word travels, that, once people kind of started talking about legalizing it, a handful of years ago, someone who's been using it consistently for a long time, I was just like, this is dope. And I think the way it's going to really kick the doors open is if athletes can endorse it, because it's always such a, oh my God, if you do drug, or, it was called a drug. If you do, if you smoke weed, you won't be able to do this and that. I mean, little did people know that like finals MVPs and all-stars and NBA champions are, cannabis consumers. So I just knew slowly but surely that was going to be the wave. And, I said, again, when I retired, that was the push. Like, yo, let's go normalize this, destigmatize it, and allow athletes, because it was a full-time job for me to smoke. Like I smoked the whole entire time, got in trouble a couple of times, but it was just a job. But to me, there was no other outlet, because again, 15 years of grind, as a basketball player, ankle, even if it's not the surgeries, it's the dislocated fingers, it's the broken fingers, it's the sprained ankles, it's the hamstring pulls. So I was really never someone who drank. I'm a social drinker. I don't, painkillers tear my stomach up. So it was just always, I smoke before and after games. You know what I mean? So I just knew how important it was to me. And again, sharing my story, I know other people can relate to that. And other people may not have the voice or the platform or be able to have the doors open that we had. So, we were talking to the NBPA, we were talking to the NBA just about, start studying the positive, because there was never funding for the positive attributes. There was always funding for what the negative things that cannabis did. So once that kind of started shifting and medical research came behind what we've been trying to tell people, it was a perfect storm of, okay, I guess it's not as bad as we wanted it to be.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm so glad. I think that we need public figures like yourself and all those that I just mentioned to help that, as you said, and kind of take it away as a movement almost, and getting the research behind it. Those who suffer from epilepsy, autism, all different types of anxiety, from the low spectrum to high spectrum. It's just great to see. So
Yeah,
I
mean, I
just
feel
want to
like
give you.
there's a piece of the plant that can help everyone from children to our grandparents, so there's
Absolutely.
just several different ways and several cannabinoids that can really, fit right perfectly with the human body.
Yeah, well, I got my grandma on the movement too, so
Oh,
definitely shout out to that.
yeah.
Joslyn, I wanted to talk to you just as like the creative behind this docuseries. We all, especially if you're a basketball head like me, we know the name Matt Barnes, and we kind of know his story, but I feel like this was such a fresh way to really get into the story. Tell me, how important was it for you to kind of put Matt's life out there to a mass public in such a positive way?
It's a great point and question. I think one thing about Revolution is it's an opportunity for us to look at the parts of someone's story that were left untold. And I think the media often likes to put into focus things that are not always necessarily inspiring or beneficial for evolution or growth, but more so just like the clickbait, and this was an opportunity to tell Matt's story in a different light and to put into focus the parts of his story that were left untold. So, yeah.
Love that. And just to conclude, I would like to ask the both of you, let's get a one general feeling, after audiences watch this docuseries and really kind of get exposed, Matt, to your life, and Joslyn, to this amazing project that you put together. Tell me a little bit about what's the one thing you want audience to take away. They're going to take away a whole bunch. I know I did, but if you had to pick one thing, what would it be? Joslyn and Matt, both for you guys.
Go first.
I think it's just learning to honor the difficult times too. We often celebrate just our triumphs, and sometimes the struggle is just as important as a part of the journey that we should look at. the difficult things we've been through that lead us to becoming the people that we are. So I would hope that people will look at Matt's story as just an example of how you can turn your struggles into your strength.
I love that.
I would say, man, I guess not judging a book by its cover. You know, I think
Okay.
the world got a glimpse of you meet 2 hours a night and I might cuss a ref out, slap somebody, get ejected, and think that that's who I am, not knowing I'm just a competitor, you know, or that the world would see me briefly on reality TV and my, you know, my relationship with my ex-wife played out in front of the world and think they know me. So I
Right.
think, like Joslyn said earlier, I think it's a perfect example of just the stuff that the media doesn't want to tell. And me being in the media now, I know exactly what Joslyn's talking about because everything is just so negative. You know what I mean? So to be able to shine light on who people really are, outside of whatever narrative the media is painted, I think that would probably be my takeaway is just, you know, if you really want to know about someone, like dig a little deeper, because now there are stories being told by us and other athletes. And, you know, one dope thing about our thing is, you know, the other athletes we're bringing on, we're allowing them to EP, you know, like really make them feel like they're a part of this project. So they really want to open up and tell their journey. So that's what I would want to take away from it.